Welcome back to Masters of Modern. I'm your host, Alex Kessler, here with my co-host, Michael Grothy.
Hello.
You're back. You're back hanging out.
I'm back hanging out. I feel like I have big shoes to fill after the last episode.
2 episodes. The Ben one or the Whitney, Tappy, and Carson
was last
one?
episode? It was 2 episodes ago.
2 episodes. Yes.
It was Carson, Sydney, and Whitney.
Ben got in, did 1 episode, dropped the mic in between you and Whitney, Carson and Tappy, the trio. My plan is to bring them back. They apparently comment below if you agree, but the word on the comments from that episode was generally very positive, and I think it would be good to bring them on for like Commander set reviews in the future as those keep coming out alongside stuff, because they can be like smaller pieces of content and you get like Whitney's card by card breakdown on like flavor of what's going on.
Yeah, Whitney set review is definitely premium content.
I mean, I get it 100% of the time. I feel like the people can get it 5% of the time. Whatever. Is that one episode? What's 352 divided by 4? In a percent. Yeah. I don't want to do math. I'm tired. Today, we are continuing the modern set review of Strixhaven. This is less of a Strixhaven review, though, because we really want to just do a deep dive on lessons. I saved all of the learn cards and lesson cards for this video, because I want to talk about it in other formats, not just modern, but modern primarily. Obviously not Commander, because they're not really legal there, though I do want to touch upon that a little bit, and just like go over their power level, what they've been doing. I've been playing a lot of Historic with learn and lesson cards, plus some Standard. Some of the friends of the cast, Brayden, who's been on the Commander side and does the CDH cast, he's had a lot of success on Historic as well, and talk about their application to Modern, go over individual cards and just how powerful they are, because it'll be kind of a continuation of that set review, and in there we'll be referencing Modern specifically, but then beyond that and talk through it. For those who don't know, lessons and learn cards are one of the main mechanics from the most recent Strixhaven set. They're a continuation of Wizards playing along with the Exile Zone or the sideboard, which is the 15 cards you have when you're playing tournament play outside the game. And basically, there are a series of cards that you can have in the lesson cards are a series of cards you can have in your main deck or in your sideboard. And then if you play cards,
they're all instants and sorceries with the subtype lesson. So kind of like arcane spells or whatever. It's sorcery - lesson.
And then you can play a series of cards that have the ability to learn that allow you to either discard a card and draw a card, or get a lesson card from outside the game and put it into your hand. And they're really cool. They're very interesting. They're a continuation of Wizards playing in that space of maximizing mechanics in ways that feels like they like benefit best of one play, right? Like it's another way where these cards, you can play best of one and then you have access to sideboard options to better handle linear decks that I think that best of one can often be limited by. It's the popularity of split cards. Modal dual face cards lean into this trope a lot, and then lessons are another take on it. It's something that also they seem to be playing with a lot more. Everything from Karn to Fae of Wishes to the companion mechanic are all kind of interacting with this extra zone in a way that they weren't before. Interesting enough, it's leaning into a mechanic at a time that also one of the largest formats in Magic, or one of the ways of playing Magic that's the largest player base, can't use it all, which is Commander. So it's Commander rules don't allow for you to have a sideboard. Therefore, these cards do not work. They made a controversial decision to allow Companion to work in Commander, which I think was the right decision. I think it's a really cool mechanic, and how it works in Commander, like its detriment to every other format in Commander has been totally fine and cool, of like creating those deck building restrictions. But other than that, they've kind of said just no to sideboard cards.
Yeah, lesson learn looks mostly like a limited mechanic, but it does overperform in limited. I think, as somebody who's played a lot of limited on Arena, hit Mythic again this time, it feels like even people who thought that lesson learn was going to be good in limited, it's like even better than that. Then like it's surpassed like pretty much everybody's expectations for how good it was going to be in limited, which makes me think that like even though it looks like these cards all have kind of a poor rate, because in limited it's like a 2-for-1 is generally just going to be good, right? So if your learn card is like, shoot, I have all the learn cards up here. If your learn card is like, target creature gets +2/+1, gains trample until end of turn, learn. You get like a little combat trick, you kill their creature, and then you get another card. That's a 2-for-1. Any 2-for-1 in limited is good. In constructed, you're not as desperate for 2-for-1s. You get to play lots of like, depending on the format, you get to play like Bonecrusher Giant, or you get to play, Cryptic Command or something. And so you have like options that are potentially more appealing than like two slightly overcosted halves that are kind of limited in what they can do. But I think like the ability to pick the right card for the right situation has been like makes these a lot better in limited than they appear. That's where I've played with them. I have not played with these in constructed at all. I haven't actually played any constructed since Strixhaven came out. I've just been jamming tons of limited because I think it's a really fun draft set. But
So
yeah, go ahead.
To talk towards that in constructed, it's from having played it now a ton of games with them in historic, and I've been leaning on cards like First Class, and there are some of the cards that have the rate of constructed cards, and then getting you a card from the sideboard that ostensibly just is like draw a medium card, right? And like for instance, the Pest, the black green hybrid Pest token maker is like fine, but because you're drawing it for free, it's better than fine. And the decks that I'm playing with, it almost plays like Lingering Souls, right? Like the feeling I'm getting in historic by like playing First Class with a Young Pyromancer in play, grabbing the Pest tokens, playing the Pest tokens.
You're talking about the card First Day of Class, right?
What have I been saying?
First Class?
Oh yeah, sorry, First Day of Class. Just gotta skip the day half. First Day of Class. Hopefully that's been up this whole time. Thank you, editing friends of the world. So First Day of Class. With like the deck that I'm playing has specifically been like a very specific take on like doing what Mardu Pyromancer was doing back in the day, because Faithless Looting is now available, and you can play cards like Claim to Fame and the Learn Phoenix, which is called
Retriever Phoenix.
Retriever Phoenix. Is that? Yes, Retriever Phoenix. And they act like your Lingering Souls in regards to your Faithless Looting, but then the ability to use your Learn spells to get and I'm going to bring it up so we just start talking about all the card names correctly. The black-green Learn card, because it's super relevant here.
Pest Summoning.
Pest Summoning. To be able to get Pest Summoning with it, plays like Lingering Souls, right? You now have a bunch of tokens in play. First Day of Class gives them +1/+1 in haste, so they're even more powerful than they would normally be. And has been really successful. And so applying that kind of lesson to Modern, where you don't necessarily have access to Faithless Looting, but these cards are pretty much not as reliant on the graveyard, which is nice as well. You're getting to play these spells, and being able to trigger Magecraft twice has also been really strong, and taking advantage of that with these cards has been helpful with stuff.
Yeah, that's something in limited too, is like a lot of the Magecraft cards, like, usually in limited you play like pretty creature heavy decks, and you're drawing one card a turn, playing one card a turn for the most part, for most of the game. But these allow you to like trigger Magecraft multiple times, because you can play like a 2-drop Learn spell, grab a 3-drop Lesson, play it, and now on your turn 5 you've triggered Magecraft twice for the price of one card, which is strong in places where you care about that.
Right. And it plays a lot like Flashback. That's kind of the feeling I've gotten the most from it, where you're playing a spell that is maybe a little bit below rate for normally what you get, and the benefit you're getting is you're getting to play a second spell. In Flashback, it's only the same
spell,
effect.
you get to pick the right one. You can go grab your Disenchant, even though it's 3-mana Disenchant, or you can go grab your
2/1 flyer
spell that dig through your library, even if digging through your library is going to be, you have to, pay 3 mana and get a creature or a land or whatever, right? So,
right.
Or just a creature.
And like, even like, because you're getting to choose some of the stuff that I thought would be underperformers, like the 2 mana draw a card, or 2 mana search for a land, gain 2 life. Environmental Sciences has been like really great, because when you're behind, 2 life matters. Like it's like a two different sideboard cards. It's the I'm mana screwed and I need to get a land, or color screwed, I need to get a land, and just like otherwise I'm going to lose. Great. And then it also, gains you enough life that makes it so that turn you're taking off to do that isn't as detrimental.
Well, yeah, and you were saying like for best of one, like linear decks, you want to beat them. Well, a lot of the time, like a pest summoning or the gain 2 life from environmental sciences can be what you need against like an aggressive red deck as a linear deck, where the pest summoning making like 2 blockers that gain life when they die. Like that's exactly what you need. Even
Right.
if it's like a little more than you would pay if it were a main deck card, you're like, getting it for free attached to another card that you want to play in your deck theoretically.
Yeah, and add to that, like, and there's just like some generically decent removal spells. Out of white, you have the like what basically is Beast Within, which is fine.
Yeah, it's only creatures, but
no,
yes,
it gets rid of doesn't it get rid of enchantments and artifacts. I thought it was just non-land.
Oh, it's non-land permanent. You're right.
Yeah.
It's non-land permanent.
Yeah,
it is more or less
like,
Beast Within.
I've definitely like killed planeswalkers and enchantments and artifacts with it. I think it's
I've only played with these cards in limited. I don't know.
No, that's fine. That's why it's in the set
many
review.
planeswalkers in limited. Although I'll have to keep in mind that I can get sparring ground with this, because there are a few very irritating enchantments that I probably wouldn't have thought of.
And then the 5 mana one also is just like eats anything. They draw a card, which is it's the better version. I'd rather my opponent draw a random card than get a 3/2 most of the time.
Just sometimes 5 mana is too much to pay.
Exactly. And because in Best of One they limit how many cards you can have to 7, so instead of having the normal 12 or 15, you can only have 7 there. So you need to be selective, or the more variety, the happier you're going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of on the like cards you can get, and like the variety is there, right? You have Reduce to Memory is the removal spell. You can use Containment Breach to destroy target artifact or enchantments. Pest Summoning has been the one that's performed the best for me. I'm also playing with cards that benefit having tokens or multiple tokens in play. It definitely seems the strongest of them. From just a like, I need a generic one to get to continue me being a threat or creating threats in play. It's the one that has overperformed. In limited, the one that I was most impressed with is the blue-green one. Just being able to get a scaling X spell has been really good.
I think environmental sciences is the best common in the set, the one that grabs a land.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It allows you to like splash. It allows you to always hit your land drops. The little bit of life is relevant, especially in Witherbloom with all the life gain triggers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, basically, like once you get one, and then you have like 4 learn cards in your deck. Well, now you have 4 extra sources of your splash color, so your splash is super easy and consistent, and you can splash whatever you want, basically. But that can translate into constructed in that, like, if you are mana screwed or mana flooded, or flooded, maybe that's not the best card, but there are other ones that are good if you're mana flooded, right?
Yeah.
But if you're mana screwed or missing a color or whatever, having access to environmental science is super nice.
And we talked about Introduction Annihilation. So yeah, just the ability to like exile and target non-land permanent. Black has the like Fractal Summoning is the one that scales really well. It's just like one of the late game easily benefited. You can always kind of get there, and you now have a big threat. Not to mention all the benefits that the blue-green decks and limited at least have to having +1/+1 counter token in play. The next one on the list, we're now just going through all of them because I want to make sure I hit on them, or all the ones I selected. Inkling Summoning is another one that I've actually is like normally what I'll do is I'll have 2 Pest Summonings in a main in the sideboard, and then an Inkling Summoning in constructed, because like being able to just have a
And this is in the context of your like Mardu token deck, basically, right?
Correct. If I was playing blue, the blue-red one might be better than this, just because it's beefier, the elemental version. But in Mardu, this one is the second best after the green-black one, because just having an evasive
it's kind of
threat.
meta dependent too. Like if you're expecting a lot of like Lava Dart, this is worse, or Lightning Bolt, this is worse. But if you're expecting a lot of like Heartless Act, then you would much rather your 2/1 get Heartless Acted for 3 rather than your 4/4 for 5, right?
Yeah, and in Modern, I think the 5 mana elemental one is just a better option. 5 mana is a lot more, but you can just kind of hold off on it. I do think Inkling Summoning is worse there, where just like a 2/1 flyer doesn't matter.
I I think the rate on these might just be too punishing for Modern, but I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah,
I do think that some of the learn cards like are decent enough. It's just that I don't know.
well, in
They're decent
Modern,
enough in that, like, if you read them as draw a card, they're decent. But then when you look at the cards that they're actually drawing, they're like so much worse than a card in your deck. But the ability to rummage is maybe relevant.
yeah, I think for me, if we're now going like, I was going to go through the rest of the lessons and then we'll get into kind of the learn cards. Yeah. Just because yes, the point with learn to me is in Modern, the loot half is significantly more relevant, and you play with maybe 2 to 3 lesson cards in your sideboard versus a larger amount that allow you to grab them, and they're maybe the more situational ones. But like, disenchant. Disenchant, the one that finds a land and a removal spell, just like those 3 being in your sideboard, and maybe a creature one.
Yeah.
Just because, like, oh yeah, it's nice that I can, like, worst case scenario, tutor for a expensive removal spell to deal with something that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to handle. Versus most of the time where I would be using them to loot, right? Like the strength of first day of class, which is probably my favorite one of the ones that I've played, is being able to just like discard a dredge card and then reanimate and then have the draw trigger dredge the dredge card to then mill out some things that then you can then use the first day of class, like Bloodghast into Bloodghast, that both come in with +2 +1/+1 counters and haste. So, I have 2/3/2 Bloodghast that then attack, or a Narcomoeba that's a 2/2 that has haste in the air. Like, first day of class is a lot of value in that option, and then the ability to just be like, oh yes, I can get good sideboard hate to deal with the fact that, like, oh, my opponent has Grafdigger's Cage in play. Now I can use my lesson card to go grab the green
Containment Breach
or whatever to get rid of that one problem that I'm facing.
Or start from scratch, which is the 1 damage to any target and destroy target artifact. So 1 damage to any target could be relevant in Modern, right? I mean, sometimes you need their Bob to be dead or whatever.
This one, like, doing 1 damage to any target is super relevant. Destroying an artifact is relevant, and it depends on what enchantments you want to deal with. And that's why I like it in Dredge.
This card looks really bad until it's not, right? Because, like, in Standard or Historic or whatever, you're like, it sits in your sideboard for a bunch of games. You're like, oh, my opponents aren't playing artifacts. Now I'm going to cut this. And then you're like, oh, actually, I really need to kill this Edgewall Innkeeper for 3 mana.
Right. Or, just like Graveyard Hate or like whatever you need to get rid of. Yes. But the, like, destroy target artifact and do 1 damage to something is so specific. But when it's good, it's like, it's stellar. And you like stop complaining. Pest Summoning we've now talked a lot about. Containment Breach is the destroy artifact enchantment. Like that's I think 2 of the main ones, and then being able to gain a benefit off of it.
It is good that you get the pest, since you have been talking about playing these in go wide decks, and I think that does make sense because, like, I think a lot of the best learn cards. So first day of class wants you to go wide, right?
Yes.
And then I think a lot of the other the good learn cards for constructed are like creatures that learn. So now you're getting a body. You're finding 1 to 2 bodies out of your sideboard that you're now putting into play. So it, like, kind of makes sense to be in a go wide deck. And Containment Breach, like, giving you the little 1/1 can be relevant in a go wide deck. Like, if that 1/1's coming in with a counter, or if you're playing Anthems in your deck, or if you're playing some type of sacrifice outlet. I saw some spicy Standard brews at the beginning of the format with Plum the Forgotten, I think is the name of the card. Plum the Forbidden or Forgotten. It's a 2 mana instant, draw 1, lose 1, and you can sacrifice any number of creatures when you cast it to copy it for each creature sacrificed this way.
Yeah.
So I saw some, like, you use Professor of Symbology to go get Pest Summoning, you play it, and then you have, like, Plum to, like, draw a ton of cards, and it's just like a go wide, and then it was playing Bastion of Remembrance and stuff. I don't think that that's, like, a deck that's been successful in Standard, but it's, like, a list that, like, looked pretty impressive on paper, and, with some tuning could get there.
Yeah.
It's just, Standard has a lot of inertia where people just want to play all the Eldraine cards still, but, that's not to say that something can't be tuned.
I do think that's something that Modern has a benefit for some of these cards versus Standard, is, like, it's literally just 1 card. Actually, it's that dumb giant. Like, that card Bonecrusher Giant is not good enough for Modern for different reasons, and it being not there allows.
It's Modern sometimes. I've seen it in some, like, bigger prowess lists.
It's not that it doesn't see play, but it is not the main form of removal of the format, and so you're not dealing with 2-for-1s with every time you lose a creature with 2 toughness. You're dealing with 1-for-1s because you're dealing with Lightning Bolt Path or Fatal Push. So and those cards are better against more things. It's just you don't get valued out as much. I do think
playing Professor of Symbology into Pest Summoning is not as impressive when your opponent stomps your Professor of Symbology and plays Bonecrusher Giant, because now you're looking at 2 pests versus their 4/3 for the same mana, same number of cards, same everything.
Right, exactly. Now that effect comes standard in a year. Different conversation, might be good enough because it has a similar play pattern to what you just described. But yeah, Containment Breach, go back to that, is one of the I think it's one of the best lessons because it can deal with anything. It can deal with any artifact enchantment. Most of the artifact and enchantments that see play, especially in Modern or Historic, are on a lower converted mana cost scale. This deals with them, and you get a stabilizing token. So the fact that you just spent a 3-mana sorcery removal spell lets you still block or get to your next turn where you can untap and actually do something. So I do like that it gives you the token. Reduce the memory we mentioned. Just playing Beast Within in white. That you can lessen for is strong. He exiles anything.
I did not realize that it exiled anything. I truly thought it was a creature. That card is a lot more appealing exiling anything, because there are definitely permanent types that are hard to remove out of your main deck, right? Most people are not playing artifact or enchantment hate in their main deck. Sometimes planeswalkers can be difficult to answer in your main deck, especially in white. It hits all those, and also creatures.
Before we get into the learn side, any lessons that I missed? Because I know there's ones I haven't played with.
I mean, if we're talking broader constructed formats, including historic, mascot summoning or Maxot Exhibition is the big one where you just
get 3 tokens.
If there's any chance you're ever hitting 7 mana, which is standard historics, more likely Modern, there is not really a chance you're hitting 7 mana most of the time. Or Pioneer.
In historic, I've been really unimpressed by it. I actually started cutting it, which has been interesting.
It might just be your deck, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's true.
If you were playing a more green pest summoning deck, which you could do because you can cast it with green mana, it might be more attractive.
Yes,
yeah. I don't know what that deck would look like, or a green-black deck with Plum or something. Because Eye Twitch is a powerful learn card that wants to be sacrificed as well. So I do feel because Eye Twitch is one of the more powerful learn cards, which we're going to get to. I know, spoilers, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Eye Twitch is one of the more powerful learn cards, in my opinion. It feels like you often might end up being a sacrifice deck, and if you're looking to sacrifice your creatures for value, it does feel like you could hit a lot of land drops.
That's true. Yeah,
Perhaps
it's
Mascot Exhibition in your back pocket is relevant. I feel like it's worth mentioning at least, right?
Yes, and in best of 3, it also might be better than best of 1. In best of 1, because you're limited to 7 in historic, is also partially why I haven't been impressed with it. It's just you have only so many slots, and it is less often good, and just the rate you get with it is not as good as I want it to be. I want it to make
for 7 mana, it feels like you want a huge effect. What I will say about Mascot Exhibition is it is, 9 power for 7 mana, which is not crazy impressive, but it's not bad. And the fact that it's across 3 bodies means that it's rare that your opponent is going to be able to answer this with 1 card. If you get into an attrition battle or a board stall or something where you have all these go wide tokens, elementals and pests and what have you, and your opponent has a couple creatures on board and they've killed your Young Pyromancer and you're just kind of top decking, and you're able to at Mascot Exhibition, now you're doing a lot more than, say, a Fractal Summoning, right? Where
sure. Except yes, because Fractal Summoning can be answered, and in Modern, because Fatal Push exists and Path, Fractal Summoning just becomes significantly worse. And having the spread out option is important. The issue has been other than the 4/4, if they answer the 4/4, the other 2 cards are relatively super fragile and easy to keep in a board stall.
It's true that a flyer can be relevant, though.
Mm-hmm. I guess
in the same way that Inkling Summoning was on your list because it's a cute little flyer.
Yeah, that you can get in with.
Flyers get there.
Yeah, that's true.
I would also like to mention Necrotic Fumes. It's been good for me.
That's the black one, right? The exile creature.
1 black black as sorcery, as an additional cost to cast a spell, exile a creature you control, exile target creature or planeswalker. I also realized they're all sorceries. I said they're all instant or sorceries at the beginning, and I was wrong because they're all sorceries. I should have known that, having played with all of them pretty much. But um, yeah, exile target creature or planeswalker. Pretty straightforward. This is like the most efficient removal option, I would say, especially if you are a go wide deck.
So you would say,
Or you
yeah,
can get this with your Professor of Symbology and exile your Professor of Symbology or whatever. Because like Introduction Annihilation is expensive and gives them a card. Reduced to Memory gives them a 3/2. This gives them nothing. You just exile something clean. It's off the table. You don't have to think about it anymore. And all it asks is that you sacrifice a creature in exchange. And 3 mana is kind of the going rate for lessons. Like, there aren't really any of them cheaper than 3 mana except the one that grabs a land and the silence. But
Mouse is not
I
my
guess
favorite.
Mercurial Transformation, but that one's not very good. Yeah, I
You
think
can
Necrotic
cast
Fumes is pretty
Liliana as
relevant.
whatever for 1. X equals 1.
Yes, you can
remove
remove
1.
two loyalty counters from a planeswalker.
So my experience with the black one, and obviously that is very deck dependent, but it's interesting because the deck I'm playing, it does have tokens in it. It has been weirdly, I've liked the white one more, just because, like, yes, what they end up with is better, but you have to jump through. It's always castable, I guess, is more the issue. Is like if
you play you play Professor of Symbology or whatever, and they immediately kill it, but you got Necrotic Fumes to play next turn, you're like,
right.
Yeah, I guess I get that. I will say that, like, it is a black card, so if you are not playing white, perhaps this makes more sense. Or if hitting double white is hard in your deck, maybe that is an option that you want to play more than Introduction to Annihilation.
And like there's a Grixis version of this that I've seen that plays the black one instead of the white one, and that seems really cool because you can play with the eye twitches and you can play with some of the other ones, and we'll get to those in a second.
Basic Conjuration, I think, is relevant too. It digs very deep. It's 3 mana. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. It's 1 green. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You reveal a creature card from among them, put them in your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Gain 3 life. This is like more mid-rangey. But it does gain life, which offsets the expensive costs, like the fact that you're potentially falling behind on board because you're spending so much money, spending so much mana. Like, you get to gain the life, and it digs pretty deep if you're like looking for a specific creature or even just gas, right? It feels like a standard mid-rangey card to me, or perhaps historic. We've kind of been talking about go wide decks. This is not as much of a go wide card, but it feels like a pretty relevant option in like a, say, gnarled Professor deck. To name drop another learn card we haven't talked about yet.
The other card I've actually seen, and I know Brayden has had success in his version, that's Jeskai, is Teachings of the Archaics, which is if your opponent has more cards in hand than you, draw 2 cards, draw 3 cards instead if an opponent has at least 4 more cards than you in hand. That being said, like, this is a card you're playing, like, you have one of them in your sideboard, and in the moment that this is good, you're getting to draw a bunch of cards, and is an option to just kind of like fill your hand with gas when you don't have kind of other options available for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you don't have to put these cards in your deck and have them be dead, and you draw them and you feel really bad. Like, they're just taking up a sideboard slot.
Right.
So, like, yes, you have a limited number of sideboard slots outside of Best of One. In Best of One, you have 7 now. In part so that people don't just jam infinite lessons in their sideboard, I assume.
Yeah, I think that's... Did it get changed for this set, or was it like Strixhaven made the change? Yeah, okay.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, Companions have kind of showed us that like 1 sideboard slot is not worth a lot. Now, if you have a little lesson package in your deck, maybe you're dedicating like 5 slots to lessons, and that sounds like a lot more than 1. But once you've already got a lesson package, like 1 more to have this cute little, hand refiller seems worth it-ish.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that kind of brings us to, I think we've covered now pretty much, I guess that we didn't cover, I guess to cover the rest of them. Academic Probation, which is the silence one. Choose a non-land card name. Opponents can't cast spells with the chosen name next turn. Choose target non-land permanent until your next turn it can't attack or block and activate. So it's like basically a silence or... what's the white blue mechanic from RTR? Arrest. It's an arrest effect. I have not been impressed by this card.
Yeah, it doesn't seem good. But...
Same as actually the Confront the Past, unless there's a cool Planeswalker reanimation spell need for it. I don't. The only place I could see
if
this
there's
is
like a black-green mid-range deck, like with Gnarled Professor and stuff, and it's playing Liliana or something, maybe this is like a one of
I guess
in your sideboard, and
when we
maybe why not?
Yeah, I guess when we talk about some of the if you're playing the one card that maybe is good, there are some Jundi cards, and if you want to try making lessons work in Jund, it is one of the decks that I think might be able to pull that off, just because it's so value oriented, and this does offer value that you can get to the mana to be able to cast these spells. Confront the Past is good at rebuying specifically Wrenn and 6 and Liliana the Veil. And that's it. So if you need to get back one of those Planeswalkers, maybe it is worth playing one of these if you're trying to make that work in Jund. I don't know if Jund can make this work in Modern, but if it can, Confront the Past is probably a fine one of in your sideboard because you'll be able to lesson into it. And then Illuminate History. It's interesting that I don't like many of the rares as much as I've liked the commons and uncommons. Because there's a cycle of rares, right?
Some of the rares are rare because they're weird or rare because they're niche.
Mm-hmm. Discard any number of cards.
Academic Probation, Confront the Past, both feel like they're rare because they're niche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then Illuminate History and Teachings of the Archaics feel like they're rare because they're weird.
Yeah, that's fair. And then Basic Conjuration is I think that's almost in the same boat. Yeah. I didn't know
Basic Conjuration is the only one that feels like just a good rate card that they just maybe thought was too good and drafted uncommon. I don't know.
It also I didn't notice
that one feels like the most out of place rare to me.
It in some ways it looks like it was supposed to be the first ability, and then they were like, this is too good in draft. We need to make it rare. But they're like, this isn't good enough for rare. And they added the Gain 3 life to the end to make it just good enough to be rare.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's already the Scry 2 draw card for 3 at common. It's not like this is outrageously better than that for one green. I don't know. I don't get Basic Conjuration, but I do think that 6 cards is a lot of cards, and if you play this, you will be finding a good creature probably if you have
good creatures in your deck. Yep.
You can play Gnarled Professor, grab a Basic Conjuration, they kill your Gnarled Professor, you play this and find another one. That seems like a super legit line in some sort of green mid-rangey deck in Standard or Historic, perhaps.
Yeah. And then the last one we haven't talked about is Mercurial Transformation, which lets you turn a thing into a frog or an octopus. I love this card from a flavor perspective. That you get to turn something into an octopus is super dope, and I hope we get more of that. I don't think it's probably, I think this is more playable than this Academic Probation for similar because the ability to make it a pump spell is a cool thing that you can do. But I also just don't think it's not.
There's an actual pump spell that puts +1/+1 counters on your creature at common. And I don't think that's particularly exciting.
Nope, agreed.
I think the main thing is that this makes the creature lose types or lose abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make their Hate Bear lose all abilities until end of turn, or you can make their creature into a 1/1 and ping it somehow. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
In draft, you can use Academic Dispute, and presumably you could do this in Standard if you were playing Academic Dispute in your Standard deck. Perhaps being 1 mana Learn card, maybe that's good enough in a Learn deck.
Mm-hmm.
But its target creature blocks this turn if able. You may have it gain reach until end of turn, learn, so you can make a creature block this turn if able, and then turn into a 1/1. Because you just use the probation to learn for transformation.
Sure.
Transform it into a 1/1 and then get them. Attack your 2/2 into their 5/5 or whatever, but you turn it into a 1/1 so it dies.
I do think that is one of the better, because it's 1 mana and because it can be used as a weird removal spell, or also you can use it to block with because you can give your creature reach, right?
Yep.
And
you can always just cycle it basically, right? If you're my opponent's creatures are so big, I'm never gonna kill one with this. You could just pay 1 mana and target one of their creatures or one of your creatures to just learn.
Yeah,
it's one of the better ones in draft for sure. It doesn't have a clear game plan, is my strike against it in Constructed,
mm-hmm.
right? It's just kind of sometimes I'll get my opponent with this is something that's playable in draft, but it's like not a clear plan in standard where it's like you want all your card or in constructed where you want your cards to kind of be moving in the same direction, either in a value oriented direction or a kill your opponent direction or some combination.
Yeah, yeah. I think that like it's versatile, but maybe just not good. Versus what? Yeah, it's an interesting one. I do. So now that we've kind of talked about it, what would you say your favorite
lesson
is?
In general, or in constructed.
Either both. One and one. Both. I don't have an answer for limited. So I have
at this point. I think. I mean, as a drafter, I got to give it up to environmental sciences. I don't think it's the most constructed playable one, but I do think it is constructed playable just because like 2 mana is cheap enough that it's not like a totally embarrassing to play this card.
Sure.
But yeah, I just feel like it's like it defines the limited format, the fact that it exists and you can play it in any deck and you basically get effectively many copies of it. Like all of your learn cards just can become this. And so it allows like for some cool limited deck building, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Constructed wise, I have not played with them, but the one that looks most attractive to me in constructed, I think like the best ones for constructed are just like the removal spells that are like slightly below rate, but you can grab them when you need them, and that's always nice. And if you don't need them, you can grab like a proactive summoning to get a creature or something. But I think basic conjuration is probably my favorite because it's like not as obvious as the other ones to me, but it like does something cool. I don't know. As opposed to the other ones where it's like, yes, looking at this board, I know exactly what I must do. I must destroy my opponent's enchantment. Or
sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I think so. I think Pest Summoning for me has actually been my favorite, and it's pretty wide in a pretty wide margin. Like every other one, like maybe the one after that I go for the most is Environmental Science or maybe Introduction of Annihilation. Like those two have also done well for me in constructed, just because Introduction of Annihilation answers anything under the sun I can murder with it. And then Environmental Science is just like good for the reasons you described in limited, but also in constructed for similar kind of like I can play 3 colors and this lets me splash, and if I'm not getting my color I can find it. But Pest Summoning, casting the other cards that work with it, like it feels like just reverse and like kind of curving out correctly Lingering Souls in historic and standard, where you're playing the Professor of Symbology for 2 mana, which is like the backside of Lingering Souls early, and then you get the 2/1/1 tokens. Or you're playing there's the token making learn card, so 1 and a 2, 1 black and 1, get a 1/1 token, and then you can get this on the next turn to play as a 3-drop. Like a lot of them curve really well into it. The life gain versus flying is obviously worse, but not irrelevant and has power to it, and there's ways to take advantage of it, and especially when you're using them to sacrifice, they're better because you're getting a value from that. So there's like a lot of...
On the Lingering Souls comparison, I saw somebody online compare these to, particularly like the learn cards that are instants or sorceries, compare them to like adventures, but you get to pick what creature you play as the creature half.
Yeah. That's fair.
Where you like, here's this instant, and then it's an adventure, and the creature is going to be a 4/4 for 5.
Right. Or like that's definitely how it's felt, right? Like you're playing you're playing the learn card, and then do you get a benefit from it? And there's a bunch of different ones, and Pest Summoning has been the one of the learn that like I think I've gone up to 3 in my Mardu version of the deck for historic, just because like every single time, like I just wish I could get Pest Summoning because it blocks 2 things, so it fogs for a turn, or with first day of class they're now super hasty. Or they are great sacrifice fodder, or they just like are able to go wide enough or double block to kill a X2. Like they do all of kind of, they like are very, very versatile versus the other ones.
They hold the +1 counters from first day of class.
Yeah. So they're definitely one of the ones that I've really liked. Now we get to talk about all of the learn cards, which I have to figure out how to search in Scryfall for, because I realized that me going through them the way I have them was freaking out my internet because Mythic Spoilers was not doing kindness.
Learn.
Learn.
Yes, no spaces.
Ooh, look at that. All right. Time to talk about learn cards. So I guess the talk first for what I've had the most experience with, the cards that I've been playing in the deck. Professor of Symbology and Retriever Phoenix, Cram Session, and Hunt of the Specimens are the ones that I've played the most and constructed. I do know people are playing some of the other ones that we can. And Ingenious Inspiration has actually been like extremely impressive. So like the weird red-white ones have been the ones I've had a lot of success with, but we can kind of go through all of them. The first one I do want to talk about though, before we get into anything, is Retriever Phoenix. Because this is the one that has the weird secondary clause, which allows you to play less lessons in your sideboard because you can just instead get your Retriever Phoenix back. So for those who don't know, Retriever Phoenix is 3 and a red, Phoenix, flying, haste, 2/2. When Retriever Phoenix enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you learn. As long as Retriever Phoenix is in your graveyard, if you would learn, you may instead return Retriever Phoenix to the battlefield. Some cool, cute things that are important to realize with this. It also means that if you have a Retriever Phoenix in your graveyard and you cast your second Retriever Phoenix, it brings the first one from your graveyard back into play. They are a 4-mana hasty 2/2 that cantrips into a lesson card, which we've discussed already. And then on top of that, just always come back. All of your other medium lesson cards create this invitability engine because these come back very easily with basically every card you play that has the ability to learn on them. I've been like extremely impressed with this card.
I don't know if you've done this, but you can use like the rummage ability on your learn cards, right? Like you can do like turn 2, Professor of Symbology, discard one of these to draw or whatever, and now it's ready to go or what, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good, but it's something that's cool.
No, you definitely can. Like that's the other thing with them, right? They like interact with every side of lessons and learns in a cool way, and it's been really cool. Like the other thing I've done, I mean, the deck I'm playing is also playing for Faithless Looting, so it's like also really good with Faithless Looting.
Yeah, that's a better way to discard them than spending a learn on it. But
like discarding with Faithless Looting like on turn 2, or even better, playing Young Pyromancer on turn 2, and then turn 3 casting that to get a Retriever Phoenix and a what's the Titan, the black red one. Kroxa, and then claim faming the Kroxa back, and then using one of the 1-mana learn spells to bring back the Phoenix back is like really fun. This deck is a blast.
So 1-mana learn spells. Are you playing Academic Dispute and or Guiding Voice?
Academic Dispute.
Got it. Okay. Because those are the only 1-mana learn spells that do it immediately. So I was wondering which one. Yeah. Okay, so you are playing Academic Dispute just as like a straight up.
Well,
like
it also acts as a removal spell.
Is good enough.
But yes, yeah, and I'm playing not a lot of them, and I've like switched it out. I've been trying all of them. I was playing more Hunt for Specimens, and that one has been actually less impressive. It's like fine if you have first day of class and that's it, and then that, and you can like chain them, but it's ended up being just like just not good enough.
Imagine if your Professor of Symbology had 1 less power.
Right, exactly. And then, and Professor of Symbology is just like one of the best ones, it being a 2/1 that lets you do those things. And in Modern, I think it's on the top end of the playable ones, more for the other ability, just the ability to loot as a 2/1 in white is something that's like super relevant.
I also think Eye Twitch is powerful. I mean, you kind of need to build around it a little bit, but like we were saying, like a lot of the lessons already encourage you to like go wide. And depending on how you are using your creatures that you're going wide with, Eye Twitch, like being a 1-drop that wants to be sacrificed and gives you value and can chip in for damage. I've been pretty impressed with it in limited, especially in Witherbloom decks where you can sacrifice it to buy you Groff, which is like 2-mana 5/4 that like sacrifice a creature as an additional cost to cast. So you can go turn 1 Eye Twitch, turn 2 5/4, draw a card out of your sideboard, pick whatever you want, probably Pest Summoning, but who knows, you get whatever. So that has been powerful for me, and it feels like there has to be some constructed applications for that, given that it's a 1-drop.
in Standard, I've played against a few Sedgemoor Witch, Eye Twitch, the card you mentioned that you can copy when you sacrifice creature, Plum decks, and I
saw a couple of lists going around when the set came out, and I think a lot of them were playing Sedgemoor Witch. Brian Gottlieb posted a couple, but I saw some in some other places as well. So I'm not surprised that that's a thing.
Well, Sedgemoor Witch is just Young Pyromancer, but 3 mana, and you get the life gain effect, and it's harder to kill, or it hurts you to kill it.
Yeah, it is Menace. I mean, it's definitely giving you 1 more mana worth of stuff.
Correct.
It's just,
It's just not
3 mana versus 2.
Yeah.
And in a color where it's harder to trigger Magecraft,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And I was the card like has definitely, when I played against it in standard, the deck has been really cool. A card that I've actually become more fond of with testing is because the thing with Academic Dispute is I think I cut it down. Like I just looked at my list and I was trying things out and I did that once and it was epic, but then like the amount of times it just like didn't have a target or didn't do anything wasn't worth it. But Cram Session has actually been really good. Just being able to like sit. It's anytime you gain a lot of life and draw cards attached to the same effect, there's often a reason to look at that, and being able to play Cram Session and just like get the removal spell you need so that I don't die that turn and then I can kill the thing that was going to kill me is like been pretty valuable. Being able to stabilize is always good. And like in Modern, I think this is another one that's like kind of impressive just because I've played 2 mana gain 4+ life before in the format, and now there are better rates than that, but this gets you a lot of other cards, including Cram Session into Environmental Science or whatever, to just like keep making it so your opponent can't kill you with burn spells.
And with Cram Session, we've reached the point in Limited where there are like pros and creators debating, is Cram Session better in a Witherbloom deck than Hunt for Specimens, even though Hunt for Specimens is a body. Like 4 life is a lot of life.
Yeah.
And, the learn is what's really relevant anyway. Maybe, Cram Session keeps you alive better than a 1/1 does.
And it's easier to cast a little bit, right? Like it's not too bad, but that is relevant. The other lesson card that I'm playing and making sure I'm not missing one that I'm now playing then this was something that Braden figured out was Ingenious Inspiration. And that card has just like been bonkers. Like it's Lightning Bolt that draws you a learn card. And like, that's kind of what you're looking for. And it just is as good as it's at a worse rate than you would want. But there's a reason 3 damage to any target is one of the most powerful things that's ever been printed.
3 damage draw a card is like a very powerful Magic card that they've never printed. And but this is kind of it.
Yeah.
It's not draw a card, right? It's a little bit worse, but sometimes it's a little bit better.
Yeah, I like worse
you can grab your Naturalize that you could literally never draw with 3 mana draw a card, right?
Right. Like if you're playing an aggressive deck, this is burn your opponent's face and make sure you like instead of drawing a land that you don't need, draw a threat and like late game draw like and even like state like it makes it so one of the weaknesses for aggro decks is turn 6+, and this lets you for 3 mana continue your game plan at a rate that is still within kind of the tolerance of burn decks, but then find a 5 mana 4/4 elemental token that your opponent can't deal with, or a flying 2/1 that goes over their stabilization.
7 mana big pile of tokens.
Or 7 mana big pile of tokens. Or 1 damage to any target.
And if you're on the back foot, this is also good because you can, kill one of their creatures and grab a pest summoning to like gum up the board. Correct. Or whatever, right?
Like in a Jund style. I think I've been playing the red, black, white version of this. I think there's also a very cool Jund in standard more because that way you can play Sedgemoor Witch. Like being able to play Young Pyromancer is really good. I think
Gnarled Professor probably has a home in standard somewhere, right? Like 5/4 trample that like is like kind of draw a card. Seems like it's good.
Yeah.
Especially when one of the cards you can draw with it can help, dig 6 cards to find another one or whatever, and you just chain 5/4s together.
Right.
Like chaining 5/4s together feels like that's a standard play, right?
Yeah. Yep. Well,
I also think Poet's Quill, Poet's Quill like is dominant and limited, like one of the best rares in the set. Just because it's like ++1 and lifelink equipment is super hard to race ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that it draws a card means that like you'll always have stuff to equip it to because it's like living weapon basically, right? I mean,
like Shadow Spear is an EDH staple off of almost exclusively just the lifelink. I mean, like the other abilities are important, but it's the lifelink. It's that giving lifelink to a creature on equipment is very strong.
I do think that trample and the ability to remove hexproof and indestructible is more relevant in Commander than it would be in any other format. But there are places where like in constructed sideboards, for example, people will play Shadow Spear as this is my out to mono red because I'm like a big creature deck. But this, yeah, I mean, in that role, this is much better because it always draws a creature that you can put it on.
Right. Right.
Or two creatures if you grab a pest summoning, right? Like if you're just looking to like block a bunch of random goblin guides or whatever, I don't know if it's quite modern playable, but for example, just pest summoning, now you have 2/1/1s that like if they lightning bolt one, you equip to the other, you're like gaining life, I don't know.
The other ones that have been like obviously Field Trip, like in limited Field Trip is the one that everyone, because it's like just like a standard rate land fixing option. Divide by Zero being like a bounce counterspell has also been something that I've been really impressed with.
Yeah, it's true. It's like 3 mana remand, but it also hits permanents.
Yep. And the remand is like the question is in Modern is draw a card better than Lesson, and in every format, right? And I don't think this is at that rate yet, though I do think some of these other options are closer to that rate. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think the higher power level the cards in your deck, like the farther apart
south
the lessons are from the quality of the cards in your deck, the less true that this is actually draw a card. Like it's closest to draw a card in Standard, where like your cards are not
that much better
than 3 mana make 2/1/1s. I mean, they are better, obviously, but it's different from like what you're seeing in more higher powered formats. But the ability to get exactly what you need is something that I underestimated about these in Limited. Like in Limited, I was like, whatever, you're just grabbing something that's worth a card out of your sideboard, and you just have to spend a bunch of mana to get access to that card. But sometimes you need to dig into your deck to find removal, and so you grab Intro to Prophecy, or not removal necessarily, because you can also just grab removal in Constructed. I'm thinking in a format where like maybe you didn't get the removal spell, but you can grab removal if you need it. If you need to dig into your deck to find a combo piece or something, you can grab a card that digs. You can grab another body that's the right size for the situation. Like sometimes the ground is stalled and you just need a flyer, you grab Inkling Summoning. Like the fact that there's a little bit of tutor aspect to it makes it kind of not worse than draw a card.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument to be that this is 90% of draw a card, and in some formats and in some environments it's 120% of draw a card, right? Where like if my opponent
limited,
has,
I think it's usually better than draw a card.
Yeah. And but like even in like Historic, where it's like drawing a card versus getting the exact option to deal with the situation I am in, and when you have the card that you need to deal with the exact situation you're in, it is now worth way more than a card. And then sometimes it's like a slightly mediocre option to what you're dealing with, and then it's worth like 80 to 90% of a card. But like that variance level is pretty great, and then apply it to the rate of the card you're casting on the front hand, and I think the rate on some of these are better than kind of like was assumed at first, or like when we were seeing previews, like some of them, like I think iTwitch is like a good rate. Like I think
for sure.
Cram Session is a good rate for a card. I think First Day of Class, you mentioned Gnarled Professor, Overgrown Arch, and Retriever Phoenix, and Professor of Symbology. All these are cards that like... And
Igneous Inspiration is definitely...
I mean,
imagine if that did just say draw a card. Like, you'd be seeing that everywhere, all over the place, right? It's just the fact that you have to get these kind of awkward cards off of it that take up space in your sideboard. But, it's kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, and even like Pop Quiz, like... Divination at instant speed is not a card that exists.
It's true. Archmage's Charm.
Yeah, that's true. There are, but those cost triple blue and so many colors. And let me tell you how many modern players have played Esper Charm and Archmage's Charm, because it's some. It's not a lot, but it's some.
Archmage's Charm is making waves, and it's not that hard to hit the mana costs on those in a format like Modern.
But I mean,
in Standard and Historic, yes, Divination, instant speed Divination is something that your deck might be interested in, and you might be wanting to pay 3 mana for it.
Yeah, so it's definitely been like really fun to play around with these cards in Historic, and I'm excited to try them out in Modern, and I think there's some cool stuff. And the point in Modern, I think, is you play these cards outside of maybe Retriever Phoenix, which I think is a really cool idea. And I will eventually try making that work. Alex Kessler, man who wants to make a Phoenix work in Modern. But I
How
think
many of them are you going to buy this time is the real question.
not it's not a mythic, right? And it's in a set with
No
mystical.
mythic.
It's in a set with mystical archives. Like there's
true.
the value of any card. If you want, I think we had John Medina on, who does like MTG pack openings and finance stuff on the stream on Monday. Good game. Everyone should check it out. It was really fun. And he did ask me what my pick from the set is, my sleeper pick, and it's right now it's $4, and I like on stream bought 4 copies of it because I realized like that's what my choice was. It's the blue red mythic 8-drop. What's it called?
Magma Opus.
Yeah, Magma Opus is my
It
my
is
pick.
being played in historic and even modern.
Yeah.
There's some 5.0 modern lists out there that are using Torrential Gearhulk to flash it back. And people are doing the same thing in historic and presumably Pioneer.
That's the card you look at and you pick up. No one's paying attention to modern right now because no one can actually play it, really. So it's like not going to raise in price right now, but I would buy
Pioneer too, right?
Yeah, same Pioneer. I would buy every Magna Opus I saw. That card is easily my number one from a MTG finance perspective. Number one pick in the set. I don't think it's the best card in the set. I think it is the
most underrated.
If it is $4, it is the most underrated.
It's true. By the time this comes out, what if somebody beats us to the punch?
Well, we'll get this. Came out on Tuesday, 4/27 at 9:46 p.m. is when we recorded this. We can figure out how the future looks then.
Scoreboard.
Scoreboard. Let's keep that up there. And I did say it on the stream on Monday, so I did say it publicly on Monday.
Nice.
Even a day before that. So the fact that card is that inexpensive, and it's going to be weird because Mystical Archives exist. So like, what is the price of things? But if that's seeing 4.0 play in modern lists, in Pioneer lists, in historic lists, and in standard lists.
Yeah. And you can always afford to play 4 because you can just discard it for a treasure to help. And like this is being played in like Blue Moon style shells where you're like a blue-red control deck that tops out at Torrential Gearhulk, which has existed in all these formats anyway, right?
Right.
But now you have like some way to just like go massively over the top against anyone by just like flashing this back on turn 5 off a treasure or whatever. And so discarding a card to make a treasure is not a big downside because you have so much card draw in your deck, and
it's instant speed too, right? So you can keep your mana open, you ramp on your turn, you go from turn 3 being able to cast a 3-drop to being able to cast a 4-drop, which lets you wipe the board, lets you play Cryptic Command, lets you that's a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
And then if they do something, you can remand it or counterspell it or mana leak it. And then
a lot of the time these decks are playing Prismari Command as well. So you can even like, turn 2 end step treasure, turn 3 Prismari Command, make a treasure, turn 4 Gearhulk. Right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that's insane. So that's definitely my pick for most likely best card to pick up at this exact moment, and we'll see. It's weird because the set's wild in regards to its existence within the Mystical Archive.
The Mystic Archive, similar to Masterpieces, just tanks the value of the cards in the set, which is nice if you want to buy those cards.
Yeah, bad for MTG Finance, which I don't think anyone's complaining about. I do think, though, like because the full art foils exist in the collector boosters and those aren't getting super depreciated, those are the ones to pick up, right? I wouldn't pick up just like non-foil standard frames because they don't. Maybe full art non-foils are worth picking up because there is a world of the Pringles problem that we don't want to have affecting you getting a game loss in modern in a GP because your marked cards are marked.
Do full art non-foils have a lot of value? I don't. No, I haven't bought or sold a lot of cards during the pandemic, which is when full arts have existed.
They do have value. Their biggest limitation right now is that paper magic doesn't exist, so the Pringle problem hasn't affected tournament Grand Prix magic.
So you think that because foils are risky in terms of tournament play, you think that full arts will be like the tournament players' swag of choice?
I think that they could start going for more of a premium starting when GPs come back and paper magic comes back if they are eternal playable, right? For standard, no one cares. Yeah. But in the formats where people like having promos only, that's an
hopefully
option.
Will and Rowan are eternal playable because I opened a full art Will and Rowan non-foil.
Oh, nice. The nice thing about the non-foils, they don't Pringle. or the double MDFC foils don't pringle.
Oh yeah, because you have them bending both directions,
yeah,
so it
they're competing.
out.
Yeah, there's a battle. I got a foil of the 5 mana full art colorless guy. That's like the most one of the more valuable cards. It's not the full art alternate art. Witherbloom Dragon is like $100 or something for that, but so that's the one to get. But I think it's like $50, but still a lot. But the archaic,
just because it's like very obviously commander playable, is that why?
Yeah, it's like just
it has commander written all over it in red Sharpie.
Correct.
Yeah.
Before we finish off, make sure to like below, hit that like button right down there. Please comment with if you were like excited. There will be the list below. I'll post the deck list. Or actually, maybe Marshall could just throw it up right now by us, and then we'll also post the deck list that I've been playing in Historic below. And then make sure to check out our Monday night streams. Every Monday night we do a live Commander stream on twitch.tv/KessWiley. We get a ton of people there. Tonight, because this is coming out on Monday, we have Jake Boss and Becky, who recently was on I Hate Your Deck and a bunch of other stuff and Jake is from the Command Zone. We're playing Commander. I'll probably play Dina tonight, and you'll find out if I'm going with a Japanese foil or regular Dina, because I opened up both in my little promo packet. So we'll see.
Tune in to find out.
Tune in. Beyond that, thanks so much for listening. This has been the end of all of the set reviews. This is much more of an overall arc conversation about learn and lessons. And we will talk to you next week.
Bye.